All right, so let me get started on the quarter 3 conference call that I was part and parcel to for Apple's Q3 results. So happy to say that according to Peter Oppenheimer, that this is the highest non-holiday record quarter in Apple history in terms of Q3. Apple posted $8.34 billion in revenue at a 12% growth from last year's quarter. They have an over 20% operation margin compared to last year this quarter. They posted $1.23 billion net income, which will mean that Apple diluted shares will be $1.35 per share. $9.7 billion adjustment in sales, which is $1.4 billion higher than what they forecasted it to be at this quarter as to previous conference call. Okay, they have a net of $1.9 billion worth of revenue, which represents $200 million more than the reported income. As for the Mac sales, they have sold 2.6 million Macs in quarter 3, 1,000 plus unit growth. Okay, 10,000. No, 1,000 plus unit growth, which represents about 4% year over year. So according to last year's quarter, at this point, they are 4% higher than where they were a year ago, which is wonderful. As for music, they've sold $10.2 million, 10.2 million iPods, which is a little bit less than what they sold last year this quarter, which was 11 million iPods. 11 million iPods last quarter. So last quarter 3, they sold 11 million. This quarter 3, they've sold 10.2 million. Okay. So it's just about 4% decline year over year. Okay. They expect that MP3 players will decrease year over year due to the iPod Touch and iPhone sales and market share. Although, surprisingly enough, 50% of the iPods sold in the quarter are, in fact, new iPod users, which is quite nice. And this number is not inclusive of the iPod Touch and doesn't even touch the iPhone. This is just iPod, Shuffle, Nano, and Classic. The iPod Touch and so on have gotten about 130% more iPod Touch year over year growth. The U.S. market share is over 70%, okay, for the iPod lineup. For the iPhone, they sold 5.2 million handsets in this quarter. And last quarter this year, at the 3G launch, they sold 717 million, thousand last quarter. So last quarter 3, when they introduced the iPhone 3G, they sold 717,000. And this year, when they introduced the 3GS, they've sold 5.2 million handsets. They've had a 1 million 3GS sold in the first 3 days since the launch. There's about 65,000 plus apps at the App Store. There is 1.5 billion worth of revenue posted as of last week, as well as, and that last quarter they were at 1.69 billion for the App Store. However, this year it's gone, or sorry, last year they were 1.5 billion. This year they're 1.69 billion, which represents a 4.19 billion year over year. Okay, so that's pretty cool. As for the iTunes, and iTunes is doing very, very well. Okay, they have, as of last week, had over 8 billion songs, movies, and so on, media content basically downloaded, which is a huge milestone. As for the retail stores, they've had about $1.5 billion worth of revenue in this quarter. And last quarter, the same time last year, at this quarter, they were at 1.45 billion. So they've gained about $500 million, plus or minus a little bit. They've sold 492,000 Macs in quarter 3. And a year ago, that same number was 476,000. And of the 492,000 Macs sold, 50% of them are new to the Mac platform. So that's kind of interesting. They've opened up 6 new stores to bring their store total to 258 stores. The average 254 stores in quarter 3 brought in $5.9 million per store. Okay, and last year it was about $6.0 million. So they've gone a little bit down, but that's okay. They've had 38.6 million visits in quarter 3 alone to the Apple Store. That's a huge number, 3.6 million in one quarter. And last year at this time, same quarter, they had 31.7 million that visited. Okay, they are slotted to open about 25 new stores in quarter 4, one of which being in France. If you want to look more into the quarter 3 results, I would suggest you go to www.apple.com and look up for the quarter 3 results. This has just been a basic, slow synopsis of what the conference call had to say. Again, if you want to hear the full story and the full picture and get a really good sense, again, visit www.apple.com and look up for the quarter 3 results. Or you can check iTunes and subscribe to the Apple Quarterly Report podcast. Either or, they will give you a full picture of what is. Anyways, see you at the next